And my last video was the beginning of a discussion on Esther Wheeler's book, The Manipulated Man, and a furthering of that discussion. Now, I had a comment from Razorblade Candy, or RBK, in my last video, and he raised some good questions, so I'm actually going to address those questions in this video. The first and the main question is, do I think that female behavior is innate or learned? I'm more of a proponent of learned behavior thing. I think that there's a little bit of innate that happens, but most of what we do is actually learned behavior. And in the attitudes and the self-perception of women, most of it is learned. So the innate part would be this. So I said, part and part, and that's kind of an ambiguous answer. I was ambiguous because I wanted to use a video to describe it further. The innate part is that a child comes out of a woman's body. So people can see this happen, people are aware this happens, and there is sort of an awe of this. Whether you call it a religious awe, it has a religious aspect to it. This is a manifestation of something miraculous or divine. When you are aware, as most people are, that humans come out of female bodies, it gives them a sense of divinity. And the learned part comes from this. When boys and girls look at the people in the world around them and their role models and the relations that are around them, the relationships as they exist, they can see that women get this sort of deference, right? They run the household, they are the authority to most children, and they also have this aspect of, I gave you life, and I brought you into this world and I can take you out, right? There is a sort of divine quality that's connected to that biological ability for women to have a child come out of their bodies. So I'm going to give it that. But when boys and girls are growing up, girls see the way the mother is running the household, they see the relationship of men to women, and they realize that women can have control without having to work. Children are not stupid. They pick this up. And boys do not have that role model available to them. Boys always know that they must work. There's no option. A boy must work, right? They can become a grifter later in life when they get older and they try to find a way around this whole work problem. But in the formative years, women can see they have an option of basically getting other people to do their work for them. And they play out the ways to manipulate people into doing things for you through their play with dolls. So girls see that they can get power via proxy, right? They get more attention when they cry. People pay more attention to them in all kinds of ways. And in the nuclear family setting, this gives them the option of not actually having to go out and be providers and be productive and do things. And boys don't have the same option. Now, girls get it wrong. In the nuclear family, this works out fairly well for them. But when they go to school, at about the age of 5, they expand their social group and they find out that there are other girls around them who can demand more proxy power. So one really attractive girl can all of a sudden have the attention of 12 boys. It's not one for one here. So even though that girl might have to pick one guy at some point to say, okay, you're the guy I choose, she's still going to have, as we see all the time, many guys stumbling over themselves, doing things for her. I'll pick up your bag. Oh, you dropped your bag. Let me get that for you. Oh, would you like this? Would you? Here's a cookie. These are even in the younger years. One girl can get the attention and the proxy power of many men. So what worked out for the girl who doesn't get this power once she reaches, the school age and has to emerge and compete with these other girls, she's made a mistake. Now the girl has to decide, okay, can I get myself that one guy? And so, they don't have to get them all. And this is how these social groups, these girl bully groups form, is you got the one girl drawing all of the attention of the guys, and then other girls who aren't getting attention know that if they attach themselves to the mana, the power of that one girl, that the guys who didn't get her, who were kind of being ignored, will go for the ones who are close to her. And hence here we get the queen bee and all the wannabes and so on. So that's the evolution of power systems when girls are given the option to not have to work. And some of them will end up having to work because they can't even get close to the queen bee, or they just don't have the ability to, they don't have the confidence that they're going to find themselves a provider. So once they reach school age, they drop this, but they still have it as their dream. Now, going back to this innate quality of women to bear children, when your beauty or your cuteness or your personality fail to get you enough attention to satisfy a woman that she's going to get herself a provider, she can always fall back on the fact that her body is, as Esther Wheeler so delightfully calls it, a slot machine. You put something insignificant into it and something grand comes out. And women are very tempted to play this game. They'll play it over and over again, except for that having that baby actually requires some effort on their part afterwards, and so they'll draw the limit on how many times they'll let it happen. But it's kind of a fun game for them to play, and that ability of their body to do this thing can compensate for where they have currently failed in getting a guy to bring them attention. Even a woman who manages to get the attention of a guy who's, the star football player or whatever, and she's got everything made for her, she knows that her beauty and the things that captured him into her zone are going to fade with time. So the best way to secure that is to have children. And children are an immortality project for women and for men. And men cannot access this immortality or death-denying project without the assistance of women. Women must say, yes, I will do this thing for you. If they try to force a woman to do it, she can abort, she can smother that baby at birth and cause it to die. So they need the cooperation of women in order to carry on their gene pool. And women offer this opportunity to men to carry on their genes. And so even the ugly women, even the women who have real shit personalities, know that they can offer this one thing and they can work it. All right, so now we're going to get into having children and how women perceive this act. Children are often referred to as women's children. They belong to them. They are her children. And most women, I'll wager, from what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of it, see their children as empty vessels that they can fill with their personalities. And just like when you buy a pet, you prefer to get them when they're puppies or when they're kittens, so that their nature and their mannerisms and their behaviors can be trained by you from the very start. If you get one that's somebody else's, puppy, then you don't know what you're getting. So you're better off to get it as a little baby, and then you can raise it and fill it with your own spirit and your own desires, and you can shape it into the thing you want. And this is what people do with their children. Women do realize that, and kids can see even in themselves, that their parents tell them to do stuff all the time and they say the magic word, no. So when girls play with dolls, this is one of the things they practice. They see their mothers, how they deal with this no thing, and they practice manipulating characters in the world around them. What I mean when I talk about women playing with dolls or Barbies, Bienya, they count too, is that you have these characters and you play relationships between them where you make one of those characters do the thing you want, right? So we see that not everybody in the world around you is willing to bend to your will, and we use dolls and characters like this in order to practice making them do the things that we want. Boys don't really do this. Boys just play action games and building games and things like that. So, but storytelling and things like that, okay, you've got great characters in there, but those characters are set. In the play world of girls, those characters aren't set. We create empty vessels, and then we make them do what we want them to do. And we play God, right? I used to love my dollhouse, and I felt like God in this little miniature world. And I could even make them go from floor 2 to floor 3, even though there were no stairs. Playing God is awesome. And girls practice it all the time, and that carries over into their later life. And the good ones try to stop themselves, try to catch themselves, and are capable of projecting themselves truly into what the world is like for men and caring about it. How many girls can do that? How many women can do that? So women get in their head that they can live via proxy power. Some of them decide that this is going to work out for them, and they decide that they can have children and they can make those children into whatever they want and whatever. So let's go back to the Becker quote. People make mistakes about power, they don't get a chance to be right about anything else. This is, I've mentioned before in a video about battered women. This is essentially the mistake that they made. They chose to be women at the mercy of men because they didn't decide to live their lives powerfully, where they do things that they want for themselves. So they put themselves in a position where to get the things they want, they have to get the guy to get what they want for them. As you can imagine, this would be extremely frustrating. And this also relates to female violence. If you can say, oh, my life sucks and I wish I could do this thing, and you figure out how to do it, that's one thing. But if you say, my life sucks and I can't do anything about it and I need this person to do it for me, it escalates. You go from trying to motivate that person to do it for you, and then you try bullying that person into doing it for you, and then you start hitting them because they're not doing it for you. So this is the source of female violence, where females have decided to not live their own lives, but to make other people live it for them, to go get the things they want for them. And when that doesn't happen, when they've made the wrong choice and it didn't work out well for them, their only resort left is violence. And studies that have been suppressed but are coming out now are showing that domestic violence is reciprocal in most cases, but where it's only one-sided, where only the male or the female is participating in this violence, it's the majority of times the female doing it. And I can guarantee you this is why. Because these women have looked at the world around them and decided that their best option was to use proxy power, and then the guy that they invested that power in didn't pull it off for them. And they don't know what else to do because they've made a choice not to get things themselves. And you are now their biggest problem. That's why they hate you, that's why they hit you, and you're going to get in trouble every time unless you are dealing only with, if you even have a friend of a woman in your life, you need to only deal with women who, if they want something, they go and fucking get it for themselves. If you entertain anyone other than that, you are looking at violence coming at you somewhere in your future.